The young instructor smirked as the silver-haired woman gingerly lifted the rifle. Behind him, the elite marksman exchanged knowing glances, watching her hands tremble slightly against the polished barrel. Not one of them noticed her eyes, calm, focused, calculating. They'd never encountered someone like Margaret Wilson before, but they were about to discover why underestimating a 72-year-old woman would be the biggest mistake of their careers. The morning sun cast long shadows across Pinnacrist Shooting Academy, one of the most prestigious training facilities in Montana. American flags snapped crisply in the mountain breeze as a convoy of black SUVs pulled into the parking lot. 8 men emerged, all clad in tactical gear, designer sunglasses, and expressions of practiced seriousness. They were the Precision Predators, an elite shooting team renowned for their accuracy and arrogance in equal measure. Margaret parked her modest blue sedan several spaces away. With her silver-white bob, weather-lined face, and slender frame, she looked more like someone's grandmother heading to a gardening club than a shooter. She wore a simple tan jacket over a cream blouse, comfortable navy slacks, and sensible walking shoes. Nothing about her appearance suggested she belonged at a premier shooting facility. As she approached the registration desk, conversations quieted and heads turned. The young man behind the counter looked up, confusion crossing his sun-bronzed face. "Can I help you, ma'am?" "The bird-watching group meets on Thursdays," he said, triggering several snickers throughout the lobby. Margaret smiled patiently. "I have a reservation for the precision rifle range. Margaret Wilson." The receptionist's eyes widened slightly as he checked his computer. "Oh, I see it here. First time at Pinnacrist." "First time," Margaret replied, signing the necessary forms with a steady hand. "My grandson gave me the session as a birthday gift. Said I should try new hobbies in retirement." Her voice carried a hint of amusement. More smirks, more whispers. Margaret pretended not to notice, though her hearing was excellent. Another fact no one would have guessed. Jason Turner, the facility's head instructor, approached, tall, muscular, with perfectly styled dark hair and a tight graphite-colored shirt that showcased his athletic build. He exuded confidence that bordered on arrogance. "Mrs. Wilson, I'm Jason. I'll be your instructor today." His tone was polite, but tinged with poorly concealed amusement. "Have you ever fired a rifle before?" Margaret adjusted her glasses. "Oh, it's been quite some time. I might need a refresher." Jason nodded, barely concealing his sigh. "Don't worry, we'll start with the absolute basics. Safety first, right?" He spoke slowly and loudly, as if addressing a child with hearing difficulties. Margaret merely smiled. "That sounds perfect." The challenge begins. The outdoor precision range stretched 1,200 yards, with steel targets positioned at various distances. The Precision Predators had already claimed the prime positions, their expensive equipment arranged with meticulous care. They were preparing for the national championship, an event that attracted the best marksmen in the country. Jason led Margaret to a station at the far end, away from the serious shooters. He began explaining the fundamentals of rifle handling as if reading from a children's picture book. "This is the stock. This is the trigger. Never point it at anything you don't intend to shoot," he said, emphasizing each word with exaggerated clarity. "Thank you, dear," Margaret replied, letting him demonstrate proper stance and breathing techniques. Derek Spencer, the leader of the Precision Predators, wandered over, curiosity getting the better of him. He watched Jason position Margaret's arms, fixing her grip repeatedly. "New to shooting, ma'am?" Derek asked, his voice friendly but condescending. "Oh yes," Margaret nodded. "My late husband had hunting rifles, but I never touched them. Thought I'd see what all the fuss is about now that I have the time." Derek exchanged glances with Jason. "Well, you've come to the right place. Jason here is one of the best instructors in the state." Jason straightened, pride evident in his posture. "We'll have her hitting targets at 100 yards by the end of the day." That would be quite an achievement for a first-timer. Don't get your hopes up, Derek laughed. The ladies in my family can barely handle the recoil. He patted Jason on the shoulder and walked back to his team, who were all watching the exchange with amused expressions. Margaret remained silent, taking in the weight and feel of the rifle, measuring distances with her eyes, noting the wind direction by the gentle sway of the distant grass. Let's start with the basics, Jason said, setting up a paper target at merely 50 yards. Just try to hit the paper first. Margaret nodded, keeping her expression neutral despite the infantilizing treatment. She looked through the scope, adjusted her position slightly, and took a deep breath. Her first shot missed the target completely. Jason tried to hide his smirk. That's okay. First shots are always the hardest. Let's adjust your stance. Margaret allowed him to reposition her, though she knew exactly what she'd done wrong. The rifle was different from what she was used to, the trigger tension unfamiliar. She was calibrating. Maybe we should try a lighter rifle, Jason suggested, his patience already wearing thin. No, this one's fine, Margaret replied. Let me try again. The audience grows by mid-afternoon. A small crowd had gathered to watch Margaret's progress. Jason had moved the target to 75 yards, and she was now hitting it consistently, though not with impressive whooping. The precision predators took breaks from their own practice to observe, their comments becoming less subtle. Hey Jason, called Mitch, the youngest member of the team, his designer sunglasses perched on his perfectly styled blonde hair. Maybe start her on the kiddie range next time. My 10-year-old nephew shoots better than that. A chorus of chuckles followed. One of the other team members, Trevor, pulled out his phone. I should be recording this for our social media. Grandma's first day at the range could go viral. Margaret pretended not to hear, focusing instead on her breathing, deliberately making small mistakes to maintain her cover. She'd played this role before, in situations far more dangerous than this one. Jason tried to maintain professionalism, but his irritation was showing. Mrs. Wilson is doing fine for a beginner. He turned to Margaret. Remember what I said about breathing. In, hold, squeeze, out, like this. Like this? She asked, deliberately tightening her shoulders, knowing it would throw off her shot. No. Jason sighed, physically adjusting her posture again. Relax your shoulders. You're too tense. Here. He placed his hands on her shoulders, pressing down with more force than necessary. Feel the difference. Margaret noticed a woman across the range, perhaps in her 30s, watching the scene with a disapproving expression. The woman caught Margaret's eye and gave her a subtle, sympathetic nod before returning to her own practice. From the main firing line, the precision predators had set up a challenging drill, hitting targets at alternating distances. Their precision was impressive, each shot finding its mark with minimal adjustment. That's how it's done, Derek announced loudly, clearly intending for Margaret to hear. He triggered 3 consecutive shots, each hitting within inches of center. Years of practice, dedication, and natural talent. Some people have it, some people should stick to knitting. His teammates laughed, not bothering to lower their voices. Or bingo, Mitch added. Isn't there a senior center down the street? Another called out. How's the senior class going, Jason? Trevor shouted. Ready for the Olympic team yet? Maybe the geriatric division. He pantomimed using a walker, hunched over. Jason's face reddened slightly. Being assigned to teach an elderly beginner was clearly damaging his reputation among the elite shooters he admired. Margaret could see his internal struggle, the professional instructor versus the man desperate for acceptance from his peers. Let's try something different, he told Margaret, his tone clipped. I'm going to set up a larger target at 100 yards. Just focus on hitting anywhere within the circle. Margaret missed the target entirely on her first attempt, prompting more snickering from the precision predators. Did you forget your glasses at home, Grandma? Trevor called out. Whatever you think best, Margaret replied mildly to Jason, ignoring the hecklers. Inside, she was cataloging each comment, each face. Not out of bitterness, but from decades of habit, assessing personalities, weaknesses, pressure points. A range officer walking by frowned at the precision predators, but said nothing, unwilling to confront the facility's star team. As Jason walked down range to adjust the target, Derek approached Margaret again. He leaned against her shooting bench, invading her space. "Don't let Jason rush you," he said with false concern, his voice dripping with condescension. "He's used to working with professionals. We have a ladies' night every third Thursday. Much more appropriate atmosphere. Lighter rifles, shorter distances, wine and cheese afterward." He winked. "Maybe that's more your speed." Margaret looked at him, her blue eyes clear and direct. "That's very considerate. Do you find it helps to separate shooters by gender rather than skill?" Derek blinked, caught off guard by the question. His confident smile faltered. "Well, it's just that women generally don't have the upper body strength or spatial reasoning for precision shooting. It's biology, not bias." "Is that so?" Margaret adjusted her glasses. How fascinating. And yet Annie Oakley outshot Frank Butler in 1875. Quite the biological anomaly. Derek's expression hardened. Times have changed. Modern competitive shooting is a different world. "Indeed it is," Margaret agreed pleasantly. "Change is the only constant, isn't it?" Derek studied her, suddenly uncertain. There was something in her tone, something in her eyes that didn't match her fumbling performance. Before he could respond, Jason returned. "Ready for the next challenge, Mrs. Wilson?" Jason asked, glancing between her and Derek with suspicion. "Please call me Margaret," she said. "And yes, I believe I am." Derek rejoined his team, whispering something that made them all look back at Margaret with renewed interest. She could feel their eyes on her, more calculating now. She had allowed a glimpse behind her mask, just enough to plant a seed of doubt. The revelation the afternoon was wearing on, and Margaret had progressed to hitting the 100-yard target with reasonable accuracy. Nothing spectacular, but enough that Jason had moved from dismissive to mildly impressed. "You're picking this up quicker than I expected," he admitted. "Want to try something a bit more challenging?" Margaret nodded. "I'm enjoying myself more than I anticipated." Jason pointed to a small steel target at 200 yards. "See if you can hit that. Don't worry if you can't. Most beginners wouldn't even attempt this distance on their first day." The precision predators had paused their own practice to watch. They'd been placing small bets on whether the grandma would even hit the target once out of 10 attempts. Margaret settled into position, took careful aim, and fired. The shot went wide. "Close," Jason lied encouragingly. The shot hadn't been close at all. Margaret adjusted and fired again. Another miss. "Maybe we should go back to the 100-yard line," Jason suggested, clearly embarrassed by his student's performance. "No," Margaret said firmly. "I'd like to continue." After her 5th consecutive miss, laughter erupted from the precision predators. "No chance." Jason finally exclaimed, his professional facade cracking. "Mrs. Wilson, with all due respect, that target is simply beyond your current abilities. Let's be realistic." Margaret lowered the rifle and looked at Jason directly. His handsome face was flushed with frustration, his patience exhausted. Behind him, the precision predators watched with undisguised amusement. "What would you say," Margaret asked quietly, "if I told you I could hit the target at the end of the range? The one at 1,000 yards. The laughter grew louder. "I'd say you're getting heat stroke," Jason replied, not bothering to hide his smirk. "That target is for expert-level marksmen only. Even the guys trained for competition don't always hit it consistently." Margaret nodded thoughtfully. "I see." She set the rifle down carefully and stood up from the shooting bench. For a moment, Jason thought she was giving up, perhaps finally realizing she was out of her depth. Instead, she walked over to a small duffel bag and unzipped it. "May I use my own equipment?" she asked, Jason's eyebrows rose. You have your own rifle? I do, Margaret replied, pulling out a weathered leather case. A gift from a friend. The precision predators had gone quiet, watching with newfound curiosity. Sure, Jason said, amusement returning to his voice. Whatever makes you comfortable. Margaret opened the case, revealing a custom precision rifle that, even to Jason's experienced eye, was clearly exceptional. It wasn't flashy or new, but every component spoke of quality and meticulous care. That's quite a rifle, Jason admitted, surprise evident in his voice. Where did you get that? As I said, a gift. Margaret began assembling it with practiced ease, her earlier fumbling completely gone. Her movements were efficient, precise, almost graceful. Jason watched, confusion replacing his condescension. Mrs. Wilson, do you actually know how to use that? Margaret smiled. A different smile than she'd worn all day. It was confident, almost mischievous. Let's find out, shall we? The transformation, the atmosphere, the range had shifted. What had begun as a joke, an elderly woman trying to play soldier, had transformed into something uncertain. The precision predators had stopped their own practice entirely, drawn by the mysterious change in Margaret's demeanor. Jason stood to the side, arms crossed, watching as Margaret set up her rifle on the shooting bench. She adjusted the bipod, checked the scope, and ran her fingers along the barrel with the familiarity of someone greeting an old friend. You want to try for the 1,000-yard target? Jason asked, making one last attempt to dissuade her. Even with a good rifle, that's practically impossible for someone. Whoa, yes. Margaret interrupted, her voice calm but firm. The 1,000-yard target, please. Jason shrugged. Your call. He turned to the precision predators. Guys, we're going to need a spotter on the 1,000-yard target. Derek volunteered, grabbing his high-powered spotting scope with an exaggerated sigh. He positioned himself next to Margaret, a smirk playing on his lips. I'll let you know how close you get, he said. Sometimes the wind carries it within 10 feet or so. Margaret didn't respond. She settled into position behind her rifle, her transformation now complete. Gone was the fumbling elderly woman. In her place was someone entirely different, focused, composed, radiating quiet competence. She adjusted her scope minutely, feeling the gentle breeze against her cheek. She took 3 slow, measured breaths, then held the third halfway through. The rifle cracked. Derek, watching through his spotting scope, blinked in surprise. That's a hit. He couldn't keep the shock from his voice. Jason stepped forward. What? Let me see. He took the scope from Derek, training it on the distant target. Sure enough, Margaret's shot had struck dead center. Beginner's luck, Mitch suggested from behind them. Margaret chambered another round without comment and fired again. Another direct hit, less than an inch from the first. Holy, Derek whispered. Margaret fired a third time, a third hit, forming a tight triangle with the previous 2. A stunned silence fell over the range. The precision predators exchanged confused glances. Jason lowered the spotting scope slowly, turning to stare at Margaret. Who are you? He asked, his earlier condescension completely evaporated. Margaret sat up from the rifle, rolling her shoulders to release the tension. Just an old woman trying out a new hobby, she said, the slight twinkle in her eye betraying her enjoyment of their shock. Nobody shoots like that without years of training, Derek insisted. Decades even. Margaret nodded. Yes, that's generally true. Were you military? Jason asked, his voice now respectful, almost awed. In a manner of speaking, Margaret replied. She began carefully cleaning her rifle, her movements methodical and practiced. I worked for the government for many years. Different department, same principles. Understanding dawned on Derek's face. You were an operator, special forces? Margaret smiled, but didn't confirm or deny. I competed internationally for a while, set a few records that stood until the equipment improved. She said it casually, as if discussing a bowling trophy. Jason's face had drained of color as realization hit him. Wait, Margaret Wilson. The Margaret Wilson from the '82 World Championships. She inclined her head slightly. My maiden name was Harrison. But yes, that was a lifetime ago. The precision predators were now gathered around, their earlier mockery forgotten. Even the range safety officer had wandered over, drawn by the commotion. She was legendary, Jason explained to his confused companions. 6 national gold medals before she disappeared from competition. There were rumors she was recruited for specialized work. Margaret finished packing her rifle, showing no reaction to Jason's words. The past is the past, she said simply. Today, I'm just an old woman enjoying an afternoon at the range. Turning Table's words spread through the facility at remarkable speed. Within 20 minutes, the parking lot was buzzing with whispers about the legendary shooter who had suddenly appeared at their range. Staff members who had been on break hurried back inside, finding creative excuses to walk by her station. Even the facility owner, a retired military officer who rarely interacted with customers, emerged from his office to observe from a distance. The precision predators, their previous arrogance utterly dissolved, had invited Margaret to join them at their premium station. The transformation in their demeanor was striking, from condescending smirks to respectful attention, from mocking comments to eager questions. Would you mind showing us your technique? Derek asked, his tone now deferential, almost reverent. Gone was the swagger, replaced by genuine humility. The way you account for wind drift is unlike anything I've seen. I've been shooting competitively for 18 years, and I've never managed that level of consistency at long range. Margaret set her rifle down carefully and moved to help him. Adjust your elbow there, she said, demonstrating the proper form. Her hands, which had appeared shaky earlier, were now rock steady. Too many shooters focus on the target and forget their own body. Your breathing creates micro-movements that matter more at distance. Like this. Derek adjusted his position, following her guidance precisely. Better, Margaret nodded. Now feel the wind. Don't just check it. Feel it on your cheek, your ears. She demonstrated a few more adjustments to this stance, her instruction gentle but precise. It's about feeling the environment, not just seeing it, she explained. The wind speaks to you if you learn to listen. Mitch, who had been particularly cruel with his comments earlier, approached hesitantly. Mrs. Wilson, would you mind taking a look at my grip? I've been struggling with consistency beyond 800 yards. Margaret spent several minutes with each team member, offering small but significant corrections to their technique. Their eagerness to learn from her was palpable, their earlier mockery seemingly forgotten, though Margaret hadn't forgotten a single word. Trevor, scrolling through his phone, looked up with wide eyes. I just Googled you. You're that Margaret Wilson, the one who set the world record in '82. That shot was considered impossible at the time. Margaret shrugged modestly. Records are meant to be broken. The young woman from South Korea, who beat my record 6 years ago, she's the one you should be studying. Remarkable talent. The female shooter Margaret had noticed earlier approached, extending her hand. I'm Sophia, one of the instructors here. What you did today, she shook her head in admiration. Let's just say it was long overdue. These boys needed the reminder. Jason stood apart from the group, watching with a mixture of embarrassment and fascination. His confident posture had deflated, and he seemed unsure of his place in this new dynamic. Finally, during a break in the impromptu lesson, he approached Margaret. Mrs. Wilson, Margaret, I owe you an apology, he said quietly, his voice strained with genuine regret. I was condescending, unprofessional, and just plain wrong in the way I treated you today. He shook his head, unable to finish the sentence. Margaret regarded him thoughtfully, seeing past the handsome face and practiced charm to the insecurity beneath. You're a good instructor, Jason. Your technical skills are excellent, but you teach from ego, not from heart. You're so busy proving yourself that you miss opportunities to truly connect with your students. Jason's eyes widened at her insight. He nodded slowly, accepting the criticism without defensiveness. I've never met anyone who shoots like you. I could learn a lot. We all could, if you'd be willing to share your knowledge. Margaret smiled, the first genuine smile she'd shown all day. That's why I came. Actually, my grandson didn't give me this session. I requested it. I've been watching your team at competitions. You have. Jason's surprise was evident. 3 events in the past year. You're all talented, but you've plateaued. Too much focus on equipment and bragging rights. Not enough on fundamentals. She glanced at the precision predators, now practicing with renewed focus and purpose. Talent without humility limits itself. Derek overheard this last comment and nodded, a flash of understanding crossing his face. We've been stuck in the same rankings for 3 seasons. Maybe this is why. Jason followed Margaret's gaze, seeing his students through new eyes. Would you consider coming back? Maybe for a proper workshop. The team would benefit enormously from your experience. Margaret shouldered her bag, checking her watch. Next Wednesday works for me, 9:00 a.m. sharp. She paused, fixing Jason with a meaningful look. And Jason, bring the ladies from Thursday night. All of them. Talent comes in all forms. You just need the wisdom to recognize it. The range owner stepped forward, extending his hand. Mrs. Wilson, it would be an honor to have you as a guest instructor. We'd be willing to compensate you, of course. Margaret shook his hand firmly. No need. Sometimes the best payment is seeing people grow. She glanced at the precision predators, now huddled together discussing what they had learned. Besides, I have a feeling these young men will keep me entertained. From across the range, she could hear Mitch saying to his teammates, "Can you believe we were making grandma jokes? She could outshoot us blindfolded." The wisdom of age as the sun began to set over Pinnacrest Shooting Academy, Margaret walked to her car, aware of the respectful gazes following her. The precision predators had invited her to join them for dinner, but she had politely declined. Some lessons needed time to sink in. Behind her, she could hear Jason already planning next week's training session, his voice animated with new purpose. The young man had potential. They all did, once ego was set aside. Margaret smiled to herself as she started her car. Perceptions could be powerful weapons, and sometimes the greatest advantage came from being underestimated. It was a lesson she had taught today just as effectively as she had once taught marksmanship to special operatives. Some skills never fade, and some truths are timeless. Age brings wisdom, if you live long enough to earn it. If this story struck a chord with you, remember, appearances are rarely the full story. The quiet grandmother at the coffee shop, the elderly man on the bus. Each carries a lifetime of experiences we can only imagine. Where are you reading from today? Have you ever misjudged someone, only to be surprised by their hidden talents? Share your story in the comments below. Remember to subscribe for more tales that remind us why assumptions are often the first casualty of truth.